There is a specific moment when you realize that your silence is more powerful than any argument you could ever win. Most people spend their lives reacting, bleeding their energy into every provocation. But the ones who truly understand human nature, they know a secret. That non-reaction isn't weakness. It's the ultimate form of control. And today, we're going to understand why the world is terrified of a person who no longer needs to explain themselves. Think about the last time someone said something that got under your skin. Maybe it was a comment at work, a passive-aggressive text message, a remark at dinner that was just sharp enough to sting. And what did you do? You probably felt something rise up in your chest. A heat, a pull, that almost magnetic urge to respond, to defend yourself, to make them understand. That pull, that's not weakness, that's just biology. The human brain was wired to react. Thousands of years ago, when a threat appeared, reacting fast was how you survived. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a lion in the grass and an insult in the comment section. It treats both the same. It floods your body with cortisol, narrows your thinking, and pushes you to act. But here's the thing, we are no longer running from lions. And yet, most people still live as if they are, reacting to everything, every slight, every criticism, every person who just doesn't see things their way. They spend enormous amounts of energy, not on building something meaningful, but on defending themselves, on proving a point, on making sure everyone knows they won't be disrespected. And the painful truth, nobody wins that way, not really. There's a concept in Stoic philosophy. The ancient Romans and Greeks understood something that most modern people have forgotten. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire, who faced betrayal, war, loss, and pressure most of us can't even imagine, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't just writing poetic words. He was writing a survival strategy, because Marcus knew that the moment you react impulsively to the world around you, you hand your power over to whoever provoked you on. You become a puppet, and they, knowingly or not, become the one pulling the strings. Non-reaction, true, conscious non-reaction, is the act of taking those strings back. Now, let's talk about what non-reaction actually looks like in real life, because it's not what most people think. It is not indifference. It is not pretending you don't feel anything. It is not suppressing your emotions or building walls around your heart. Those things are defense mechanisms, and defense mechanisms, over time, make you smaller. Real non-reaction is different. It's a pause, a moment of awareness that says, I see what's happening here. I feel what's rising in me, and I am choosing not to be governed by it. It is not the absence of feeling. It's the mastery of what you do with the feeling. And that mastery, that is terrifying to people who rely on your reaction to feel powerful. Think about the provocateur, the person at work who always has a sly comment, the relative who knows exactly which button to press at the holidays, the stranger online who writes something just to get a rise out of you. What do all of these people have in common? They are fishing. They cast a line and they wait. Your reaction is the catch. Your outrage, your defensiveness, your explanation, that is the thing they wanted. When you don't react, when you look at their bait and simply don't bite, something interesting happens. They lose. Not in a dramatic way. There's no argument to win, No confrontation to claim victory, and they just lose quietly. Because the game cannot be played without two players, and this is the psychology that most people miss. Conflict requires your participation. Drama requires your energy. Chaos requires your attention. The moment you withdraw those things, the moment you refuse to feed the fire, it goes out and you walk away, not rattled, not depleted, but intact. There is something else at play here, something even deeper. It's about energy. Your energy is finite. You wake up every morning with a certain amount of it. Some you spend on work, on love, on creativity, on the things that make life feel worth living. But every time you react unnecessarily, every time you let someone's words or actions send you into a spiral, you spend energy you didn't need to spend, energy you could have invested somewhere meaningful. Highly composed people, the ones who seem calm even in chaos, the ones who seem to move through life without the constant turbulence most people experience. They have not been untouched by difficulty. They have simply learned where to spend their energy and where not to. They've learned that most things, most provocations, most dramas, most urgent feeling moments do not deserve their full self. And so they give those things almost nothing. A look, a nod, maybe a brief word, and then they move on, carrying their energy with them like something precious. Because it is precious, your attention is precious, your emotional energy is precious, and every single time you give it away to something unworthy, you are making a trade you didn't consciously agree to. Now, let's talk about what this looks like inside a relationship. Because this is where people often misunderstand non-reaction the most. They think that if they love someone, they must respond to everything. Every accusation must be answered. Every argument must be resolved right now. Every silence is dangerous. But the wisest people in relationships, the ones who maintain genuine intimacy over years, they know that not everything needs a response. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is wait. Let the heat pass. Let the other person feel heard without immediately defending yourself. Let there be space. Space is not abandonment. Silence is not rejection. And composure is not coldness. These are things that emotional intelligence teaches you, that the immediate response is rarely the best response, that a pause is not a retreat. It's a preparation. There's a Japanese concept that speaks to this beautifully. It's called ma, which roughly translates to the meaningful pause, the space between notes that makes the music, the silence between words that gives them weight. In conversation, in conflict, in life, the space you hold, the pause you choose, can carry more meaning than anything you say. People who understand this, who have truly internalized it, carry themselves differently. You notice it immediately. There's a stillness to them. They don't fill every silence with words. They don't feel the need to justify every decision. They don't explain themselves to people who have already decided not to understand. They simply exist in their truth, without performance. And that is what confuses people around them. Because most of us have been trained to see silence as submission. If you don't defend yourself, you must be guilty. If you don't argue back, you must be weak. If you don't explain, you must be hiding something. But the person who has mastered non-reaction knows that the loudest voice in the room is almost never the most powerful one. Power does not announce itself. It doesn't need to. Let me give you a moment to sit with that. Power does not announce itself. Think about the people in your life who carry the most genuine authority. Not positional power, not the kind that comes from a title or a role, but real, quiet authority. The kind that makes people lean in when they speak, the kind that makes the room feel different when they enter it. Are those people loud? Do they fight for the last word? Do they react to every provocation? Almost never, almost never. There's a practice in psychology called the gray rock method, originally designed to help people deal with narcissists and emotionally manipulative individuals. The idea is simple: become as uninteresting as a gray rock. Give nothing, no emotional reaction, no drama, no fuel. And what happens? The person seeking a reaction eventually stops seeking it from you, because there's nothing to find. Now, you don't have to be dealing with a narcissist for this concept to be useful. Because the truth is, some version of this dynamic plays out in almost every difficult relationship, almost every conflict, almost every situation where someone is trying to destabilize you. The antidote is the same. Give them nothing to work with, not out of cruelty, not out of ego, but out of self-preservation and clarity. Because here's what you protect when you don't react. You protect your perception. When you're in a reactive state, you can't see clearly. You're not responding to reality. You're responding to a story your nervous system is telling you. A story colored by old wounds, past experiences, and the biochemistry of stress. The non-reactor pauses long enough to ask her, is this really what it looks like? Is this really worth what I'm about to spend on it? Often the answer is no. We're also going to talk about something most people don't discuss when they talk about non-reaction. And that is the internal work it requires, because it would be easy to hear all of this and think, okay, I'll just suppress everything. I'll put on a mask. I'll become emotionally unavailable. But that is not what we're talking about here. That is not strength. That is armor. And armor is heavy. Real non-reaction is built from the inside out. It starts with actually feeling your feelings, with sitting in discomfort long enough to understand it, with processing what provokes you so that it no longer has the same hold over you. A person who doesn't react because they've done their inner work is very different from a person who doesn't react because they've numbed themselves to everything. One is free, the other is just frozen. And freedom, that's what we're really talking about here. The freedom to choose your response. The freedom to not be at the mercy of whoever is most willing to be dramatic today. The freedom to move through your days without being constantly pulled into other people's storms. There's a line from Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust and wrote about what kept people alive in the camps. He said, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, that is what we are building today. Not walls, not indifference, not emotional numbness, but space, conscious, intentional space, between what happens to you and what you decide to do about it. So how do you build it? You start small. The next time something provokes you, before you respond, take one breath, just one. That's the whole practice in the beginning. One breath that says, I am here. I am aware. I have a choice. Over time, that one breath becomes 2, becomes 10, becomes a pause long enough for clarity to arrive. You also start to notice your triggers, not to judge yourself for having them, but to understand them. Because a trigger is just a wound that hasn't fully healed yet. And every time you react impulsively to a trigger, you reopen it. But every time you pause, every time you choose not to give the trigger your full power, you are slowly closing it. You begin to ask a different question. Not how do I win this, but what does engaging in this cost me? And sometimes the answer will be that engaging is worth it, that something genuinely needs to be addressed, that your voice needs to be heard. Non-reaction doesn't mean permanent silence. It means choosing when your voice serves you and when it doesn't. The person who has mastered this, who truly carries this as a way of being, begins to notice something shift in their life. The chaos finds them less, because chaos is attracted to reactivity. The provocateurs lose interest, because there's no sport in it anymore. The drama begins to thin, not because the world has changed, but because the person walking through it has. They start to seem untouchable, not in a cold way, not in the way of someone who has shut the world out, but in the way of a mountain, present, grounded, unmoved by the weather passing over it. You can be moved by things. You can feel deeply. You can be fully human and fully feeling, and still not be governed by it. That is the goal. Not to feel less, but to be moved without being swept away, and slowly, the world around you recalibrates to match that. People begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped accepting less, without ever saying a word about it. Your energy communicated everything your words didn't need to. This is the silent strength. This is the thing the world is terrified of. A person who no longer needs external validation to know their own worth. A person who has stopped explaining themselves to people who aren't truly listening. A person who can sit in silence, in stillness, and not feel the need to fill it with performance. Because when you no longer need to react, you are no longer controllable. And that, in a world that is constantly trying to pull your attention, your energy, your emotions in 100 different directions, that is the most radical act of self-possession you can practice. So carry this with you. The next time someone tries to provoke you, the next time something stings and you feel that pull to react, remember, your silence can be the loudest thing in the room. Your stillness can be the most powerful statement you ever make. And the choice, the beautiful, sovereign choice, to pause, to breathe, to decide who you want to be in this moment, that choice belongs entirely to you. Nobody can take it from you, unless you give it away. And now you know not to